the last series of the day, and it's going to be not Portugal versus Romania, but Switzerland versus Hong Kong. Both teams currently sitting at 3-1, so we have another qualification match.
I always like to see these as well. While the elimination ones can be kind of juicy,
Exciting.
this is nice, exactly. No one's going to be left too disappointed at the end of this, as a player who's eliminated still in with a shot as slim as it might be. But for the player who wins, they're looking to be in a great spot to qualify through to that top 16, as we're starting to get more and more players advancing through. Still only one with an unbeaten record in Brazil, but you don't need to get perfect, you just need good enough.
Yeah, I know. I did just get 2 back-to-back losses, personally, from the caster side of things with Italy and the Netherlands. But it's fine. Netherlands is still going to win the whole tournament, so I will win in the long run.
Well, Taiwan are already through, and Germany, you know, could also join them. So, looking pretty good on side Derek Brown.
Let's take a look at the teams for Hong Kong and Switzerland. For Hong Kong, Blitzchung, Kin, Loosefield, and Shai versus Gushanage, the Rabin, Knights, and Hypno. 4 teams that, honestly, 4 players that, honestly, I don't know very well.
Yep, Switzerland is a surprisingly not well-known team, actually. For where they are situated geographically in Europe, they are surrounded by lots of very, very well-respected Hearthstone-y countries. But they themselves have had not quite the breakout performances that a lot of other players around them have. However, we liked what we saw from Hypno in particular, I think, last week, didn't we? Where he brought the even Paladin that we were somewhat unconvinced by. But I know you went on to play quite a lot of that and had decent success with it.
I did. The deck did seem very good. I've moved on since, but I can definitely see that being...
greener pastures.
To slower pastures. But the other thing about Switzerland that makes them a little bit unique is I believe it's a completely new roster compared to last year.
Right.
And I remember last year it being particularly interesting because they were saying to me that there's no common language that all 4 of them had.
Oh, really?
They had to, so like one of the players had to always translate. I think one of them spoke French and Swedish, another one spoke English, another one spoke English and French. Like, I don't remember exactly what the combo was. But there was no one language in common between the 4 of them.
It's like us 4 casters, we just don't speak the same language. None of us can understand each other.
I think it's just Lorinda that speaks his own language, actually.
I think it might be.
Let's take a look at the picks and bans for this series.
Starting off with getting rid of the anti-aggro decks from Switzerland is Hong Kong in that warrior. No matter what kind of warrior you bring, be it odd or quest or control, just the standard dead man's hand one, it's always good against the aggressive decks. So if you have an aggro lineup, just get that out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland's warrior was pretty greedy as well with the double Daihorn and the Elise, so it looks like it would have been capable of potentially beating some of those slower lists too. But there you go, Mages picked last, and honestly, my perception of the meta at the moment, that's no real surprise. Aggro Mage doesn't really seem to be doing it generally. However, today, it's been very successful.
Yes, it has been doing fairly well today, but I think on both sides, Aggro Mage could be suffering here, because for Hong Kong, they've got a much more aggressive lineup. They've got the Odd Rogue, Odd Paladin, Aggro Mage, Zoo as well, and Aggro Mage generally fares fairly poorly against most of the aggressive decks, because they can't lock down the board. Whereas for Switzerland, they've gone a little bit slower, with at least the decks that they've been left up with the Priest and the Warrior, and Mage probably wouldn't do all too well against those either.
Well, let's take a look at how they've fallen into place. It's the matchup list, and first up, we're going to have Blitzchung on the Quest Warrior versus the Rabin on Odd Rogue.
That's right, a pretty nice matchup, I would say, for Hong Kong to get things rolling. They've got half of the Odd Warrior tank up hero power, which is obviously a very nice matchup against the Odd Rogue, but a whole plethora of extra tools to help them lock down that early board. Obviously, I'm talking about Execute in combination with Blood Razor, maybe a Warpath thrown in there as well. Can do some pretty good stuff at killing off those must-remove minions. Yep,
for the Odd Rogue, it's just all about pushing to the face, though, isn't it? It's about those cold bloods. It's about getting those bigger minions down. They are running Myra's Unstable Element, which I know has been a little bit of a point of discussion recently. A lot of the teams haven't been. You said that Rage released a list that didn't have it?
Yeah, I mean, the first I saw of it was Rage hit Rank 1 Legend and posted a list without Myra's. I haven't really experimented enough one way or the other to really comment on whether or not I like it. It functions, from what I'm hearing, somewhat counteractively to how I would intuitively think of it acting, in that it works better against the aggro decks some of the time to refill after you've dumped very quickly, whereas against the control decks you're often playing a little bit slower anyway, so it doesn't refuel quite so many.
Yeah, that is the opposite to what you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking about it. But yeah, so I'm going to put you on the spot, Derek. Warrior or Quest or Odd Rogue? Who wins this one?
I would like the Warrior. I think they're just in a pretty good spot. They've got the armor up, a whole bunch of taunts that you can throw in a way. Like Odd Rogue just doesn't deal with Phantom Militia, right? You throw down a bunch of 2/4s, they have to start breaking through with their little tiny minions. So unless the the Odd Rogue can get off to a very nice start through the likes of an uncontested fledgling or a hench clan thug, maybe Argent Squire with a cold blood on it, stuff like that is probably going to need to happen if they're going to get through.
Yeah, this Warrior deck is just very good against aggro. All of these Warrior decks with the control-y styles seem to be pretty good against aggro, and it is the power, I mean, in this one specifically about, as you said, cards like Warpath, Blood Razor, these cards that Odd Warrior can't actually put in for some reason.
And it's interesting that we're seeing a lot more Quest Warrior coming back into the meta now, with Odd Warrior being the dominant Warrior deck for the last 2-3 weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
It's been pretty far ahead in terms of people's favorable Warrior decks. But now that we're seeing so much Token Druid coming back, especially with the playoffs lineups that have just been starting to be tweeted out by the players, so much Token Druid that I'm starting to think Quest Warrior or maybe Dead Man's Hand Warrior could be the way to go, because it has got those cards that just make some of those matchups unlosable. Like Warpath just beats the Token Druid on its own. You can't lose that matchup.
Let's not convince the teams to play Dead Man's Hand Mirrors on stream.
Yeah.
That could be
Don't do that, please. For my sake, wait until I'm gone, then go for it.
What was the ruling on that? The Warrior with the most armor wins the game at the end?
I think it was, yeah.
All right, it sounds like we are just about to get started one more time. It's Hong Kong versus Switzerland, and winner of this series will be qualifying for the top 16 of the Hearthstone Global Games. It's a big one. We will, of course, be updating you with Portugal-Romania as well once that game gets started. Yeah. That'll be going on the off-stream. We'll keep you updated, and if you want to check out the games, then you still can. They're still going to be uploaded to YouTube in about 24 hours. And if if you're not getting enough Hearthstone content here, check out the YouTube channel. There are loads of games for you to absorb. Yeah,
plenty of Hearthstone coming up with, again, not only the global games here, playoffs over the weekend as well, where we'll get to see the meta develop more with what I would imagine a lot of players are focusing on the moment, where I know I've talked to a lot of players, and you have as well, where global games this week has been a bit of a struggle. They maybe haven't been able to commit as much time as they would usually like to, because so many players are committed to, especially the European players with them being the first playoffs, making sure that they're practiced enough for that.
I keep forgetting that EU playoffs is this weekend. So it's EU playoffs this weekend, and then we've got HGG next week, and then we've got NA playoffs. Wow, lots of Hearthstone coming up.
As we are finally ready to jump in.
Bring It On isn't a card that you used to see much play in Quest Warrior at all.
Yeah, it was mainly in the Dead Man's Hand Warrior, and I think it still doesn't actually see that much play in the list that I've been seeing. Could obviously be very powerful in this matchup, though I would imagine not quite yet. You probably want to wait a little while before you throw down the Bring It On, because if you let them go for a crazy Fungal Mancer or whatever else...
Bring It On.
I do not like that.
Then Hench Clan on turn 2, Fungal Mancer on turn 3.
Please, Lord, no. I think in this matchup, it's worth considering throwing away the quest, but you then ultimately do not throw away the quest. It's just pretty valuable in this matchup, because they can kind of go into the late game if you're not developing any threats. In the end here, though, Blitzchung thinking, I'm just going to throw it away, rely on my very, very low curve, low value deck, even with the Shield Bearers in there as well.
It's crazy.
To dominate this board enough.
We've seen a little bit of Shield Bearer in Quest Rogue recently, but that does seem to be a recent change, or at least they more often run Shield Bearer than they used to now.
Yeah, I think, again, when we saw it last week, the first time I've seen it was Race bringing it to Summer Champions.
Oh, yeah.
But I could be wrong there. It was a little while ago, and we didn't get to see much of it because it just got completely destroyed. I think Warrior's the only class that didn't win a game at the Summer Champs.
I just want to say, very important point here that I haven't mentioned yet. I am loving the Rabin's facial hair.
It's very cool, isn't it?
That is an impressive beard.
I am also loving the fact that he calls himself the Rabin.
Not just Rabin.
Yeah, I think more players should be embracing that.
The Rabin.
The Rabin.
The Derek Brown.
The Derek Brown. Why not? I need like a silly made-up Hearthstone name, right? Other than my actual name, which is silly and made up.
That's how you make it silly and made up. You add the to it.
The, exactly, yeah.
The Falcone.
Or, yeah.
The Lorinda. The Gaskin. The Raven. That's a cool one.
That's kind of a thing.
The Raven's good.
Please keep going. There's plenty of time left in this game for you to rattle off the name of everyone you've ever met. Sorry, that came across a bit bitter.
It did, just a little bit, yeah.
As for Switzerland here, their decision to keep, I believe, both Hench Clan Thug and Fungalmancer has put them in a decent position because their follow-up is very strong. Obviously, however, their immediate plays have been hampered quite drastically because there is no one-drop like a Diamol, which they could throw down the Cold Blood on here. Because if they did have a one-drop, we could very possibly see Dagger coin Cold Blood to set up for Hench Clan Thug with an already very strong minion on the board. However, here, they obviously have to take it nice and slow.
Blitzchung's hand, though, is just looking like it's been perfectly crafted to slow down and put a stop to everything that the Rogue can throw at him, though. He's got taunts coming out every single turn. If he wants to, Tark Reaper now into Phantom Militia. Well, he's not going to want to play one Phantom Militia, but then he's got Saronite on turn 4. I guess he might be considering just armoring up or playing the Dry Risker now so he can coin out the Saronite, but either way, that's more taunts than Switzerland are going to be able to deal with too quickly.
Yeah, I like it a lot. You don't really need to get out the taunt right now, do you? Because he's kept 2 cards but played no one-drop, which means he's either going to be playing Hench Clan Thug or the Vicious Fledgling pretty much every time, right? Like, you are always expecting that to come down. Although, sorry, I will correct myself. There are no Vicious Fledglings in the deck. So I think you're very much expecting a Hench Clan Thug here, basically. It's the premier card in this matchup. And so coining out a Tark Reaper doesn't really fight back against that, does it? You may as well do it next turn because it can't value trade into it when you're on the attacking turn. But
now the question I have to ask is, what does Hong Kong actually have to deal with this Hench Clan Thug?
Not a lot right now. It's just a lot of stall that they're hoping will get the job done, and then probably, unless they find some removal a little bit earlier on in the form of Execute, Shield Slam, Blood Razor, Warpath, they just go coin Garrosh and hope that that can clean up, which is not the most ridiculous suggestion.
Because this Hench Clan just does some serious work here. Dagger can just clear up the Shield Bearer, the Hench Clan just value trades the Tark Reaper. Oh, and the Rabin still has 3 mana to play whatever he wants.
And this is exactly what the Rabin wants to be doing here, right? Just take it nice and slow. Yep. He knows his opponent's thrown away the quest, so he will be trying to take it a little bit slower, outvalue his opponent in the mid game. I'm obviously not saying he tries to extend this to the hyper late game, but at least right now, he can try and exhaust his opponent of resources whilst also getting that chip damage through to face.
There's a pretty good sequence of turns available for the Rabin, actually. If he daggers down the Shield Bearer, makes the value trade, he can dagger up and play Diamol. That means next turn he can go Fungalmancer up onto the 2 minions. That's a lot of damage. And then he could follow that up next turn with, you know, Deadly Poison, SI7 Agent, whatever he wants to do from the hand. Hong Kong's going to struggle to keep up with this.
Yeah, I think what he was really trying to find on this turn was any play that didn't involve bringing his Hench Clan Thug down to 2 health.
Sure.
Right? Like, I think he very possibly doesn't even attack into the Tark Reaper here.
Wow.
No, because, like, he doesn't want it to die to Warpath or Blood Razor, right? Because this is the cornerstone of his current strategy, is this...
oh, he's protected it against Blood Razor, though.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, so by playing the Taunt, he has protected himself against the Blood Razor.
It's just Warpath.
Right, and Execute.
Or like Coin Brawl or something.
Yeah. So I think whatever he's doing, as long as he protects this Hench Clan Thug, it's probably fine. Even then, I don't think it was necessarily 100% correct to attack in there. But either way, I mean, pretty much no matter what happens on this turn, he does set up for a Fungalmancer, right? So this play was probably just fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to argue against Fungalmancer here. What are the other options? Dagger up, Deadly Poison, Cold Blood? No.
I mean, the options are kind of wish you could go back in time and position your minions better.
Yeah, that's the problem. He'd love to just leave the Hench Clan as a 5/2.
Yep.
I mean, if he does, if he daggers up, Deadly Poisons, trades with one Saronite with a weapon, Cold Blood's the mole, trades the other one, then he is then pushing 7 damage to the face with his other 2 minions. And the Hench Clan becomes a 6/3, the Tark Reaper hasn't been damaged, Hong Kong's board is clear. It's worth considering.
It is definitely worth considering. You don't have to go all in with Fungalmancer here, right? Because if you do and you're met with a Brawl, your hand actually looks kind of bad from that point. So he, I think, again, is going to be thinking, how can we take this a little bit slower? Eke all the value we can out of this dagger, which is what he's going for here.
Yeah.
I imagine if he is going for Cold Blood, he might put it on the Tark Reaper instead to put a higher health minion in play. But there is merit to both.
Just going to try and protect both of the powerful minions with his Tark Reaper. Though Blood Razor would still deal with the Tark Reaper if equipped now. It's kind of a flaw in that plan. There it is.
That's true. I mean, but Bloodraiser deals with this anyway with this play, and it doesn't even have to attack in, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if he equips Bloodraiser now, then the...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, if he'd done it on the Tark Reaper, Bloodraiser would still have dealt with his high attack Tark Reaper, but he would have had to have attack in, exactly, so it would have been a fair bit more damage.
Well, it would have been at 7 damage with the attack in, thanks to the little buff on the opponent's turn. Either way, now, if Blitzchung plays the Bloodraiser, what else is he doing? Coining out Hero Power? Coining out Dry Whisker? Like, it's not a great turn, is it?
It's not great. And you do want to save the coin, I think, for Garrosh as much as possible, because that's your power turn where you just lock down the board for the rest of the game.
But then just Bloodraiser hit-in pass feels horrible.
It does feel pretty bad. So your other plays, Coin Phantom Militia. Doesn't feel great. Your opponent just gets to dictate the trade so heavily there, and you're going to take a bunch of damage.
Yep.
I think it has to be Bloodraiser, right, just to clear the damage off the board.
Oh, it's so bad, though. But you're right. Like, it's the only legitimate option. Ooh. 22 health, and Switzerland has a fair bit of damage on the board. Fungalmancer pushes an extra 4, the dagger goes in, the buffs the Hench Clan. This is so much damage.
This is where you play it for the charge damage to phase. He's taken the slower, slightly more value lines of play. Now it's paid off for him because he's been able to value trade consistently throughout this game. Now he pushes damage to the face. Rabin is going for the throat here. Oh, sorry. The Rabin.
The Rabin is going for the throat. Also known as Blitzchung.
I think we need to give him an equally regal sounding name, like Blitz of House Chung.
The Rabin versus Blitz of House Chung.
I mean, his name is a lot cooler than mine anyway. It's got Blitz in it.
Yeah. Blitz Brown. The Blitz Brown.
So now for Blitzchung, the ability to gain 6 health on this turn is a very nice way to start stabilizing at least. But at the same time, these Phantom Militias value trading are just going to be value traded into, right? He doesn't actually stem the tide of damage here because he has not drawn any removal. It's literally just been the Bloodraiser.
Yep, just putting up a bunch of taunts isn't going to do it here. The value trade that this Hench Clan has been able to make alone is just pretty disgusting. He's having to play Bring It On to get himself out of range.
Yeah, that doesn't feel so good, I think, if you're Blitzchung.
Even if he's coining out Garrosh next turn, the taunt is protecting the Hench Clan thug from the weapon.
Yeah, and Rabin knows it, right? He will be making sure that the taunt stay in good positions.
The Rabin.
Sorry, the Rabin.
Just 1 cost cards. 3 mana Giggling Inventor.
Yeah, he thought it was good for 5. Not necessarily the easiest play though, right? Because there's still so much that you want to be playing around.
He's 1 off lethal, if I'm counting correctly.
11, 14. 16, 17, 18, 20, 24? Or is it 22?
It's 23, isn't it? Okay, we've counted different numbers.
10, 14, 17, 19, 21.
Choose soon.
Is it not lethal?
Well, we're about to find out.
I think it is, right? Yeah. Yeah, he's pushing it all to face. 15, 17, 19, 21. Oh, no, it's 23. It is one off. Yeah, sorry.
Don't doubt me, Derek Brown.
Sorry, I shan't doubt you any longer. I think I was counting the attack damage, the dagger damage twice.
Ah, okay. Well, either way, he's not going to push it all because why not hold on to 6 damage in the hand? That seems pretty good.
Exactly. Don't leave yourself vulnerable to the Warpath or to Brawl, Garrosh, whatever. You are just winning this game at the moment.
Like, I think you could consider playing the Southie deck
that's
to play
what I was
taunts.
going to say.
But then, in what world are there too many taunts for you to hit the face next turn? The build is so big, it would have to be like, what, Brawl, Coin, Dark Reaper or something?
Yeah, and they would have to win the Brawl, right?
Yeah. I think the deckhand's fine there. or fine in the hand or fine on the board. It just doesn't matter.
I mean, it does give you more refill. Like, if by some miracle they completely clear this board, you can still extend the game a little bit later, because they're only getting 2 armor a turn. This is not Odd Warrior. They cannot pull out of range of your dagger, because you just hit them for 2 while they heal for 2. So Blitzchung clearly thinking, can I get away with Coin Scourge Lord Garrosh? Doesn't really win him the game. Double Phantom Militia keeps him alive, I guess, in some situations. We can see, I think, pretty clearly, it's not going to keep him alive, right?
Definitely looks like lethal to me.
Yeah, I think you can pretty consistently get that 10 attack through to phase, and the Rabin taking a pretty nice and fairly unfavorable game, actually, right there at the start, but just all the key cards that he needed were there, right? He got the Hench Clan Thug, he got a nice Cold Blood early on as well, following up with the Fungal Mancer, and Blitzchung just did not hit that removal.
And it was exactly like you said as well. You said he needs to play it nice and slow at the start, and he did. And because there was no removal, Blood Razor came on turn 5 on its own with no hero power or anything. The Rabin is, what is he doing right now? That was...
I think gesticulating.
Oh. Very exciting. But yeah, anyway, it was very well played by the Rabin. Next up, we are going to have Hong Kong with the Odd Rogue with Shy versus Hypno, the even Paladin man, on Aggro Mage.
Yeah, this is going to be, I would say, somewhat of a less favourable matchup for Switzerland. I mean, I didn't think they were in a good spot coming into that one, so who knows? But I think in my experience, the Odd Rogue just does a better job of locking down the board early on, and the Aggro Mage is constantly having to play catch-up, using so many burn cards just on minions, that even if they do go for the face plan, they usually die to counter-lethal before they can actually make it work.
Yes, that's true. The sort of very small caveat to that is that Rogue has no healing.
It doesn't.
So the mage can just start flinging damage to the face. Again, I've said this a lot today. If the mage starts with Mana Worms, gets the 2-drop, gets killed into a mage on 3, all of those little bits of chip damage are permanent. And then Fireball to the face can just be lethal at some point.
Yes, but then it's the same thing as when you're playing Spell Hunter or Odd Paladin or Odd Rogue. You have very little life gain or healing in the deck, be it through armor or healing. But that doesn't matter because you generally win before the Aggro Mage can do anything, because their ability to make a big board is fairly limited.
I just want to see Hypno playing even Paladin though.
It was a very cool deck. I'll agree with you there.
Did they bring it this week? No, they actually didn't. They actually brought Odd Paladin.
Yeah.
Oh, boring. I don't know. It's just very exciting. Valenier is still very strong.
Valenier is a good card.
Still does some serious work. The rest of the series, let's have a quick chat about who we think is favoured now going forward. So obviously Switzerland won their little unfavourable match at first. You think this is another unfavourable one for Switzerland? Then we have a mirror.
Right.
So, okay. Then we have Aggro Mage versus Tog Druid, and now those guys were talking about that matchup. We've talked about this matchup a little bit. We're pretty sure the Druid's favoured.
Yeah, I just like any of the Druids that run Plague and Malfurion, I just like in that matchup, right? Taunt Druid is always the exception because it functions a little bit differently to the rest of the deck. Yep. Because your anti-aggro capabilities are a little bit weaker, your anti-mirror or anti-druid capabilities are a little bit better. You know, it gets up and down depending on what deck you're up against. But if you can hit Spellstone or Wild Growth or maybe even a Moonfire, which obviously wouldn't be in the Togwaggle version, leading up into Malfurion, Plague, Ultimate Infestation if you can get there, I feel like there's too much stall, too much removal, too much armor gain, and usually the Druid can get the job done.
And then finally, we have Shadowwalk Shaman for Hong Kong versus Control Priest for Switzerland.
Yeah.
Which I still think is favoured for the Shaman because they just have that win condition. They've got healing reigns to sort of stay in the middle, which would mean, I guess, the key matchup is the Death Rattle Hunter Mirror.
I would agree with that. The last one, the Control Priest up against the Shadowwalk Shaman, is a bit weird because the Priest will usually get to their win condition a little bit quicker, I find, because all you really need is Anduin on 8, Alexstrasza on 9, or just Alexstrasza and Anduin in some combo should get you towards lethal very quickly. But while the Priest win condition might be quicker, it's weaker, quite significantly weaker than the Shudderwock Shaman's win potential. If you go for Alex Straza and they hit you with Hex Healing Rain, all of a sudden you're sat there going, oh, well, what was the point of that?
And the fact that just while going along its way, the Shudderwock Shaman plays some Life Drinkers, heals up a little bit there. As you said, Healing Rain heals up a little bit there. Hagatha can get some more healing potentially at some point. All of these little bits of chip healing definitely helps the Shudderwock Shaman. But let's jump in to game number 2, and Hypno does have Mana Worm, Coin, Kirin Tor Mage. If he can shuffle away Luna and Glyph and potentially get a secret, that is the type of blowout start that the Mage needs. Yeah,
it is. I wonder if you do even throw away Luna. I guess you probably do, right, because you want to hit secret, but it's a well-statted minion, reasonably, at least in terms of the health that you're getting, that fights back for board, and maybe if it's not removed, just runs away with the game. I guess that's unlikely to work off.
There's disembodied head
back of Hong Kong Street.
Pretty sure they're not a member of Team Hong Kong. Just
yeah. Well, you know, don't be shy. Got him. I can still see her hair like peeking in the background.
Well, Derek's not going to be watching this game of Hearthstone, are you? He's going to be watching the corner of a screen.
Yes, I am, Daniel. Come on, as Hypno here gets a very nice starting hand indeed. And I believe we've actually seen this exact situation already today, if I'm not mistaken, or at least something very, very similar, where there were 2 Mana Worms available to the Mage going second against the Odd Rogue, and they didn't play one on turn 1 because they knew that Dagger plus 1-drop killed it off. And now I think this is exactly that situation. Please, if you're listening, Dan or Lorinda, I think it was this exact situation where they went Mana Worm, Coin, Frostbolt on turn 2 to play around the Dagger, right? Which was a pretty weird way of playing it, because when you have Mana Worm on turn 1, you play Mana Worm on turn 1. But it did just mean the Dagger didn't really do that much.
Okay, but flip, like counter argument, Mana Worm, Coin, Mana Worm here. Even if Hong Kong deal with one of them.
Mana Worm, Coin, missiles. 50% of the time, you're very, very happy. You've stuck a Mana Worm on
It's happening again.
They're doing the thing.
They are doing the thing. The thing is being done. Next time we could see a Mana Worm and Mana Worm, Coin, missiles. That's still just really a 50-50. But even then, if one of the Mana Worms die the following turn, who cares? The other one's alive. It keeps hitting damage to the face. I don't know. This looks like it's a thing we could talk about for a long time, but I much prefer playing both of them here as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah. This is the way to go. If you kill it off, brilliant. You have 3 Mana Worms on board that they're not killing anytime soon. And if you miss, so what? You've dealt 3 damage to face. You're still pretty happy. But that is pretty much the perfect scenario.
Well, should we move on?
Yes.
to the next game. Because
well, no. I mean, like, we can't call it over, right? There's still a lot of ability to fight back on the board. There's still a Giggling Inventor.
Yeah.
It's a good situation for Hypno.
Giggling Inventor, this must be one of the worst matchups for Giggling Inventor, right? Because Cinderstorm alone does so much damage to it. Explosive Runes means the person playing it takes 5 damage. There's all sorts of counterplay in Aggro Mage against Giggling Inventor. Shooting Star is another one that's very strong. If Switzerland draw a secret next turn, I don't know. This is getting really bad for Hong Kong. Even just Cinderstorm this next turn is incredible.
Yeah, Cinderstorm looks pretty good here to me as well. Even if you just kill off one of these minions, you're
trade into the 1/2.
Pretty much over the moon, right?
So trade the.
I don't think you do trade. I think you just go face here.
Oh,
Lorinda, do we go Cinderstorm or Arcane Missiles ping? Let us know in 2 hours.
Just give them 5 hours and then we'll get there. Yeah. In this event, it's Cinderstorm, right? Because there's 3 minions on the board. That just makes the random factor more likely to hit minions, less likely to hit the face.
Yeah, I think I like the Cinderstorm. And you just push the rest of the damage to face, right? Like, you're not even going to be hit with a...
But if he trades in with the Flame Elemental first, then it's Missiles Ping, if he wants to try and guarantee minions being removed.
I don't want to say definitively one way or the other, to be honest, because Missiles maths is really, really hard.
It's the same situation as before. It's 2 minions with 2 health. It should be exactly the same as what Lorinda worked out before.
Didn't one of them have 3 health, though, or am I misremembering? Maybe. Hypno here, in the end, is going to be going with this Cinderstorm, because if it hits, brilliant, he clears stuff off the board. But if a lot of these go face, then he can just start going for lethal very aggressively indeed. That was one of the less good scenarios, I would say.
I still wanted to see the trade into the Flame Elemental first.
Really? That's 4 damage to face, Falk. Like, that's so much damage.
Maybe I'm overvaluing clearing the board.
I guess maybe, but you still very possibly end up with your board getting cleared anyway, right? You have to clear off one of those minions. We have to clear off both of them, sorry, or the attack is the exact same.
We've not seen a Fireball yet, so actually Hypno have so many outs to get lethal over the next few turns, and he can just play Luna plus missiles here and draw a card. Shy then has to deal with Luna, which makes that awkward.
Yeah, you probably don't Frostbolt this, do you? I was looking at that because, you know, if you clear off the board, then maybe you can stick board, but you just don't need to stick board for the rest of the game.
And also, you can't guarantee that Hong Kong don't have anything to play next turn.
Yeah, like, exactly.
You're not in a better position then than you would be now. I just think Luna missiles, start drawing cards, put something on the board that Hong Kong has to deal with.
Kirin Mage does fight back for board a lot more effectively because you could go Kirin missiles this turn, I guess, and then if they dagger attack in, even with the buff on Hench Clan Thug, is still trades. But again, I think drawing cards is just better, right? You just need a Fireball and you've pretty much won the game.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's my thinking. Yeah. A second Frostbolt would also get them there. Okay, 2 out of 3. It's fine.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Second Hench Clan, though, could cause Hong Kong some issues over the next few turns. If that grows out of control...
Yeah, maybe you do go for that instead of the Giggling. Like, Giggling, when I think defensive plays, obviously you think Giggling, but this just puts more damage on the board. They're never going to stick board for the rest of the game, and they clearly don't care about it, or they wouldn't have gone for that very underwhelming play in terms of board control.
Like I said, Giggling is just less important in this matchup than it is most matchups. It doesn't do anything to prevent the burn. What Shy does to prevent the burn is kill Switzerland, and he's going to do that with the Hench Clan Thugs.
This turn gets really difficult now. There's a lot of choices you got here. We could see Cinderstorm first, and then you just ping. Just see what happens.
Yep.
Frostbolt the 4/4, and then Cinderstorm, hoping to clear the board and get some damage through to face.
I'm less of a fan of that one.
I mean, clearing off your opponent's board is not pointless at this point. They are pushing a lot of damage.
I like seeing where the Cinderstorm goes. Okay. See if it like, let the missiles decide. Whew. That's like the worst possible outcome.
I mean, it's not bad. You get a lot of damage through to face. You are just a Fireball from winning from here on in.
Yeah, again, or a Frostbolt. If they ping face this turn, then a second Frostbolt also gets them there.
But I agree, that was... yeah, that was probably the worst outcome, right?
Because I think if you can, you ping away one of these Hench Clans, but you don't want to waste a Frostbolt on it. So,
yeah, that was pretty
if
bad.
he pings face, 2 Fireballs is lethal, a Frostbolt is lethal. Is that it? I think that might be it. So maybe that's not the way to go.
Maybe you just Frostbolt face to deny the buff. That stops 4 attack on this turn and gets damage through to face.
But if you Frostbolt face, then you're not playing into the Frostbolt lethal out.
Real tough one there for Hypno. But in the end, he's just putting his faith in the heart of the cards, hoping that he can draw through to a lethal with this Frostbolt.
So both glyphs can be lethal, Frostbolt or Fireball. That's 3 more cards. So that's at least 5 cards in his deck. That's 1/4 of his deck. Give him potentially lethal.
And secrets aren't bad. Like, explosive runes kind of stops his opponent from developing lest he just die to this Frostbolt.
He runs a Flame Geyser as well. That would be 1-off lethal, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, the Flame Geyser. We need to figure out who was playing that and got it popularized, because we've been seeing it pop up a lot in the global games.
Is this a 2-turn lethal setup?
This is, I think, quite handily a 2-turn lethal setup, which is why I was suggesting maybe you do just go for the Frostbolt into the Cinderstorm, because now you are completely dead on the following turn. Sorcerer's Apprentice is not the draw for lethal, and that looks like Hong Kong have turned it around.
Is there anything that they can Frostbolt to prevent the lethal here?
You Frostbolt the 6/3, then you're hit with, what, 8/11 plus the buff. That's lethal on board.
Yeah, they can't do anything.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Oh, that got so close. And now it does make us think about that play. Should he have Frostbolted the Hench Clan Thug? Again, ideal scenario, I guess, is that the Cinderstorm sets up a ping to deal with one of them, but putting them both to 2 meant the Frostbolt felt really inefficient, and now Hypno, knowing he's dead, gives it up. Shy takes the win. It's 1-1. And oh, that was more intense than I expected it to be.
It was, and less one-sided than we expected it to be, because the aggro mage lost. It was so un-one-sided that they lost in the end. But even with a double Mana Worm start, and I think we both agree that they sequenced it out pretty well, not going for the Mana Worm on turn 1.
I really want to go back and think about that because like Mana Worm on turn 1, coin second Mana Worm, they deal with one Mana Worm and then the second one goes out of control. I think that's got to have some merit to it.
But even with 2 Mana Worms on an uncontested board, they still didn't go out of control, right? Like, there was so much counterplay.
All right, anyways, we have plenty of games left potentially this series. The score is 1-1. Winning team will go 4-1 and qualify to the top 16 in the HGG Swiss. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back to HGG. It's Hong Kong versus Switzerland. The score is 1-1. And next up, we have a Death Rattle Hunter mirror.
We do. We've seen this a few times on the global games, to my memory at least, and I think from what I remember, we've usually seen it go pretty one-sided, as this matchup so often can. It usually either goes really, really quick or really, really slow, depending on what the cards are that are drawn. Because if one player gets that early start with the eggs in particular is really what helps you win it, maybe with a Shore or a Cube thrown in there as well, you can just run away with the game. But if neither player gets that, it can turn into a Deathstalker Rexar game where you're just going for as much value as possible, trying to burst your opponent down, maybe with Bittertide Hydras and Rhinos. But basically, those games can be a bit of a slog.
So with that in mind, Derek, we're looking at Loosefield's hand.
We are.
He's got the egg, he's got the cube, he's also got the Rexar. Does he throw the Rexar away because he's got the egg and cube?
I don't think so. It's so good in this matchup.
Just throws the Grizzly?
I think Cube is kind of interesting because, like, you can just win. You don't need Cube to win this matchup, right? It's not against, like, some of the slower control decks where the value of egg alone is not enough. Because if you just go egg, coin, play dead into the tracker as well, like, you just blow out your opponent. Like, they just can't really fight back then.
I find the cube's golden animation really eerie as well, by the way.
Yeah,
the way it like, shifts about.
Pretty big stanky eyebrow there.
Yeah.
Doing all that, yeah.
No,
but in the end, they are going all in for that early start. I mean, I was talking about the power of going for Cube and Death Rattle activators early on, and clearly Loosefield agreed that he needs to go super aggressive here if he's going to take this game.
Switzerland not getting the tracking they would like. They want an egg above all else, but I guess they take the play dead so that if they hides.
Yeah, you have Cube as well, right? Like, none of these other cards are that good. Giggling Inventor just gets Mossy Horrid or Rexard. And Spider Bomb is good. That's definitely the one you're considering a little bit more heavily, I think. But
they don't have long to make this decision, thanks to the turn 1 turn timer being a little bit faster. Yeah, they are going to go with the play dead. So it's kind of going to be bad news for Switzerland when they see Hong Kong's egg come down, though there's no activator for it just yet.
They are safe for the moment, at least, which is a huge deal, because an egg on turn 2 or turn 3, or I guess they couldn't do it turn 2, but turn 3 or turn 4 is way harder to deal with than an egg a little bit later on in the game. Because as soon as Knight starts throwing down his own high mains, cubes, even a Katharina Winterwisp like we see now, his ability to fight back against Devil Saws just absolutely skyrockets. He can go for stalling with maybe a Hunter's Mark, a flanking strike he picks up, and he can just develop onto the board, which should be able to hold him at least an even board state. But still, if Hong Kong can find themselves with a Terrascale Stalker, like we see there, that'll help.
That will help indeed. So now it's just coin out the egg, right? There's no question about that. Coin out the egg. Switzerland should not be able to deal with it yet. We've not seen a candle shot. There's probably no Hunter's Mark, and even if there was, Knight probably wouldn't want to play it on this.
Brilliant. Yep, they've just spent 2 cards to give you a 3-mana 5/5.
So this seems pretty good. Almost guaranteed to proc next turn. Flanking Strike is about the best answer we can find, but it costs 4. He has 3 mana. Yeah, okay. Eggs are about to go crazy.
Yeah, there's just nothing Switzerland can do in the immediate, at least, is worth pointing out. They do have some pretty strong follow-up over the next few turns. With a flanking strike, may be able to pull things back. But Hellmaster Shore as well is a really nice curve for Hong Kong.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Yeah.
Terrascale into Shore, then they just want the cube back.
Yeah, I mean, they probably want Rexar back as well, but then obviously that's false logic to assume that, because they wouldn't have probably drawn through to this hand so consistently if they hadn't pitched Rexar. So, I mean, it's worked out well for them, right? They've got the start they wanted. As they're just considering what side do we play it on here? Like, obviously I assume what their next few turns would be. This one is nice and easy. You make your 5/5s and you start hitting your opponent with them.
And it obviously goes on the left arrow. Come on.
You don't want to separate an egg and it's Devil Soul, baby.
Well, Knights has a flanking strike. So he deals with the 3-3, and Loosefield still has board control. Loosefield is free to drop Houndmaster Shore, and there's no way Knights can deal with it unless, again, he has that Hunter's Mark. Yeah,
it's not perfect then, because you are letting your opponent just pretty nicely trade off the Devil Saw. And they could even go, what could they play on turn 5? I guess Witchwood Grizzly is the worst thing you're going to be seeing there. Yeah, so it's not bad. Like, the Shore probably survives, right, unless they have another copy of Flanking Strike. But Hong Kong here could be thinking, even though my opponent can value trade into a Chain Gang with their 3-3 here, maybe we just play the Chain Gang anyway. Protects the 5-5. We have the Candle Shot here to take out the extra health from it. But they are going all in on the power of Houndmaster Shore. And to be fair, we know how good Shore is in this matchup. You have to kill it when you can.
And there's the draw that can kill it. So
it would be wasting 5 mana.
It would be.
If Switzerland were to go for... Oh, sorry, wasting 4 mana, yeah. But what else do they do? If they go for Witchwood Grizzly and their opponent has any kind of minions whatsoever, it just gets destroyed straight away. It's such a tough decision.
I think it just has to be the Hunter's Mark here. Again, like you said, we've seen the power of Shore. The Hunter's Mark, the hero power, they're wasting 2 mana. It's...
But then you're not even killing the 5-1, right? Like, that's also really good on this turn. Maybe because you kill the 5-1, you go for it. Like, there's as important as it is to kill off Houndmaster Shore, it's so bad here to waste 4 mana and not kill off a 5-1.
But when is Hunter's Mark going to be good, though? We've got Highmane coming down next turn. I guess the turn after it could be okay, but... The turn after, they really want the Grizzly to survive.
They really want the Grizzly to survive. Yeah.
But Spider Bomb is not going to let that happen.
Yep, does look like a pretty easy Spider Bomb turn to me. There's some consideration for...
Saranite, trade everything in? That's pretty bad.
No, I was looking at Ooze because it destroys the weapon, but even then, yep. Spider Bomb, kill off a nice big juicy minion, and then you're following up into Mossy Horror next turn, which if they go for any kind of play that's vulnerable to that, be it through, I don't know, Keleseth, maybe even an egg, arguably, or obviously Giggling Inventor primarily, that Mossy Horror could do a lot of work.
Second Hunter's Mark.
Just taunting them.
Yeah, it is. Now the problem is, Knights has to just throw down Savannah Highmane, otherwise he's floating 1 more mana than he would have been, unless he wants to go Hunter's Mark, trade Cube. Ugh.
It doesn't feel great, but you do still have other uses for your playdead, right? Like, making 2 2/2s isn't that much worse than making a 5/5, and obviously the Katharina, yeah, as a follow-up to go for on turn 9, I suppose. You can go for Katharina turn 8, and then hope it survives to go into playdead. You do still have 2 beasts, I believe, in the deck for Switzerland. Taking a look at their list in the 1 King Crush and the 1 left Witchwood Grizzly. But maybe you say, by throwing down Highmane, you have to kill this off. It trades pretty valuably against it. And if it does survive, Cube into Playdead into Hunter's Mark is such a good turn, right?
Big if, though.
It's a very big if.
This Highmane gets dealt with very often. Maybe not right now, though. If Hong Kong had a Playdead or a second Terra Scale, this would be insane. So maybe they have to start with this turn with tracking.
Yeah, it's a shame they can't kill off with what's on board, right? Because then they could just go Mossy Horror to clean up the 2/2s as well.
Yeah, but now, say they track into a Playdead.
I mean, you start off with the tracking, right?
The 5/5 trades, the short
well,
trades.
Unless you want to go Mossy, because then you could go Mossy just to kill off your 0/3.
Oh, yeah, that's good,
and then that gets Rush.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, well, that would...
Which isn't bad.
That would allow him to clear the whole board, wouldn't it?
Not the whole board, but... Oh, no, sorry, because that has Rush as well. Yeah. Trying to find something a little bit more impactful here, but they did not find that in the immediate, at least.
They can play Keleseth and the Gluttonous Ooze, trade both of those into Savannah Highmane, and then put Shore into one of the 3/6, one of the 2/2s.
I think I prefer this right now. Like, say to your opponent, You know, so what? You have this on board. I can still kill it off, as underwhelming as it is. And now this turn does quite clearly become a lot worse than the Mossy Horror turn.
Yeah, no, honestly, I hadn't spotted the Mossy Horror turn at first. The fact that the 5-5 had rushed completely eluded me.
Yeah. Yeah, and the 2-7 as well.
Yeah. Okay, well now Switzerland has to deal with this short. There can't still be any question about that. So Hunter's marking and putting the weapon into shore. The question is, what does he do with the rest of this turn? It's looking
play dead.
Oh great, a bunch of 2-2s. That's how you win the matchup. When you've got Katharina in hand, that feels even worse.
Yeah, you probably save the play dead, I guess, right, for Katharina.
And possibly even the cube for the minion that comes out of Katharina.
Oh. Yeah, I think you want to be a little bit more optimistic, right? Like, this game is clearly not over in the next couple turns. No one's running away with the game.
Yeah.
Because no one even has any good cube targets. So maybe Knights here just doesn't play the cube at all.
What have we've been saying all game about not wanting to cast these Hunter's Mark because of the amount of mana they'll be floating? Well, let's float some mana.
They're clearly considering it very heavily, but the potential upside if they do hit either the King Crush or a Witchwood Grizzly is pretty drastic, right?
The play dead was one card too deep.
I mean, just go play dead Mossy this turn. That
yeah,
seems pretty good to me, right?
That's great, but for the tracking last turn, that play dead would have been great.
That would have been very good, I agree.
So play dead Mossy would leave loose field with 2 5/5s and leave Knights with nothing. Yeah, looks good.
I guess you could go Egg, Ooze, play dead, because then it sets up for a Mossy on one of the following turns, giving you 2 5/5s out of the Devilsaur eggs.
This is a new weapon. It's also the last weapon in the deck. Yeah, I like that.
But which do you like more, Falcone, is the question. You can only make one play in Hearthstone.
Oh.
Don't know if you knew that.
I didn't. I've been making all of the plays every game.
Well, that's how you got top 100. That explains a lot. Looks like Loosefield wants to take it a little bit slower because, again, the Mossy Horror doesn't do that much to destroy your opponent's board if you play it now, right? It doesn't deal with a Giggling, which you want to be able to deal with. I still feel like it might be better, though, because if you go for Egg on this turn with the Gluttonous Ooze, next turn you want to play Katharina, so you're not playing Mossy Horror then. And you want to play Katharina when you're ahead on board, because it's not much of a catch-up mechanism.
Oh, that's the worst draw in the deck, right?
Yeah, that's not a good draw.
So, getting a Grizzly from Katharina isn't looking good. It's also... Wait,
it's the only play you have, though.
How many high mains are actually in the deck now?
1.
So yeah, there's only one Witchwood Grizzly, that's it. Oh!
But you have no other play.
It's so bad. Because now Katharina has no Death Rattle either.
It does not. Loosefield doesn't know that, obviously. Maybe he will make him play a little bit weird around it. But he just goes for his own Katharina, right?
How do you play around a Katharina that you think is going to summon a King Crush?
Ignore it?
But then play dead is an issue.
Yeah, but if you kill it, I think you at this point you can be pretty sure they don't, or you can gamble that they have no minions left in the deck.
Can you?
I think you can make a risk that it's there though, right? Because okay, if they don't have it in hand and it is in the deck, what do you do? Do you just kill it off here? I mean, you couldn't even kill it off. You just ignore it here. There's nothing you could have done anyway right now.
Now this is unpleasant for Switzerland.
This is very unpleasant. You kind of have to make a bunch of 6/6s, I guess, just cube and play dead the Katharina.
Oh, it feels worse than it actually is. Making a bunch of 6/6s.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's just better than making a bunch of 5/5s. So
I mean, you just lose that instance. Like, we can see Hong Kong, unless Switzerland can clear up the board right now, they just kind of lose. Because there's so much damage on the board from Loosefield. But it was Knights' shot to take this back, right? And I guess they can take out the Katharina of their opponent. Or, you know, then their Katharina would die, so they have to take out a 5-2 here. Which, again, is nicht so good.
This is so awkward, given that there is a 5-1 on the board ready for the weapon to destroy.
Yeah, the only real play available to Switzerland, to be honest. And they just need to pray that there is no King Crush left in their opponent's deck.
And there is.
Yep.
It's there.
There is indeed.
Unlike Knights. who drew his King Crush at the worst possible time. Loosefield still hasn't drawn his King Crush.
Yeah.
Had to be careful with the timing there.
So now, what's happening here for Loosefield? Grizzly, Ooze, Hunter's Mark? Feels like a pretty decent play, right? There's no lethal available, I don't think, because you can't kill off your own Katharina without attacking into a minion instead of face. So you can push 11, 13, 14, 16 damage to face on this turn if you wanted to, but I mean, the King Crush probably amps up that damage a little bit more, so you just trade with one of the Katharinas.
Grizzly is looking like it's about as good as it gets this turn, though.
And it stops the cube from being able to kill itself off as well, right? Which is really good.
Yeah.
Because your opponent's also played both Hunter's Marks, I think, at this point.
Well, yeah, it doesn't actually prevent the cube from killing itself off, as the Katharinas can trade in, and then cube can go into Katharina.
Well, but he kills off one of the Katharinas here, right?
Oh, sorry.
By trading in his Katharina, and then he gets a King Crush out of it. Or maybe a...
There are too many Katharinas this game.
Yeah, there are indeed. I mean, I guess he could keep just going through to face, but I think you get more damage this way anyway, right, if you just trade it.
And Crash appears from the deck, goes face. Did he get it? He didn't get it
in!
He didn't get it in! Missed 8 damage to the dome!
I mean, it's probably still over, right? But
I don't think it makes any difference. But come on, Loosefield!
Loosefield's got to be feeling pretty bad here. You're letting down the boys.
He just missed 8 damage to their face.
Yeah, that was messy, and that was probably, I would argue, communication breakdown after the exact dilemma I was thinking of do you trade the Katharina?
Yep.
Keeping a minion hidden inside the Death Rattle is good, you still get 6 damage, but then clearing a minion off your opponent's board is good. Making sure you don't draw the King Crush naturally from your deck is very good, because if that happens, you're in a terrible spot.
Luckily for Loosefield and Hong Kong, there is the concede. There was nothing that Switzerland could do. Hong Kong take game number 3. And now, we did say earlier that we think the vital game was the Death Rattle Hunter Mirror.
Yeah.
Things are now looking great for Hong Kong.
They are, as Loosefield looked very relieved that he didn't quite put the lose back into Loosefield in that game as much as he tried to.
I say things are looking great, but if we take a look at the next matchup, it's actually going to be Aggro Mage versus Togwaggle Druid, which should be favoured for Switzerland. So I should reword what I just said and say it was important that Hong Kong won that, because now moving forward, they're in with a good shot to win the series, whereas if they lost that, they would not be.
Yeah, they would have been in a very miserable position. I mean, the last game that we have, Shutterbox Shaman versus Control Priest, is not a matchup that you see all too much in Hearthstone at the moment.
It's not, no.
Both in ladder and tournament play.
Shutterbox Shaman is not a deck that you see all too much in Hearthstone, nor is Control Priest.
Yeah, we've seen it very limited, both in previous tour stops, like Copa America, I believe there were 2 Control Priests and maybe a small smattering of Shutterbox thrown in there as well. But they've pretty much fallen by the wayside for the power of Druids, Quest Rogues, and aggro decks at the moment. And they're kind of the premier strategies that people are pushing forward. But it could be an interesting one.
You wait. When we're all bowing down to our mighty Odd Warrior overlords, then Shadowbox Shaman will make a comeback.
Perhaps. And then you just play Quest Rogue. Oh, no, wait, I forgot. You're like 70% against Quest Rogue with Odd Warrior for some reason.
I've never said that in a serious setting. I would never want to announce that I think Odd Warrior is favoured against Quest Rogue in any way whatsoever.
I mean, your results prove it. Like they would illustrate that you are favoured.
It just so happens that everyone on ladder playing Quest Rogue is really bad at that matchup.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
They should not be losing those games at all. But anyways, to the matter at hand here, Aggro Mage versus Togwaggle Druid. Tell us one more time, Derek, why is the Druid favoured here?
In my opinion, and I think most people would agree with us here, there's just too much removal in the early game, too much stall for the Malagos Druid. You have to get up to a really... the Togwaggle Druid. Yeah. You have to get up to a really blistering start as the Mage to actually overwhelm them. And even if you do get off to a nice fast start and go wide with minions, they can then just go for Spreading Plague, which is very difficult for you to deal with. And as soon as they play Malfurion, if you're not in an incredibly dominant board position or threatening lethal on the next turn, you probably just lose that game. That Death Knight is absurd against Aggro Mage.
The one thing I do want to ask you, Derek, is does a Luneth do anything for the Mage? Like, is that a card that the Mage can use to come back? There's no removal for the Tog Druid. So.
Well, Falcone, yes. it's obviously absurd. You pay 6 mana and you draw like 15 cards over the course of the game. It can obviously bring you back, not only in terms of damage through to face, which is usually what people associate with a Lunith, because you draw all your cards, fire it all off towards the dome. It can also help you win back board control, because you can very easily lose it against Druid, where if they go Plague into Tyrant into Fluked Tyrant or something like that, you kind of just lost board control for the rest of the game. But then if you can go double Apprentice into Glyph, into Missiles, into Cinderstorm.
Anomaly into Shooting Star is also very
Exactly, stuff like that. You can bring those combos together to seize back board control. So a Lunith is definitely a key component that Kin could be going for to try and take this victory.
There's that Flame Geyser again.
But here for Gusenaj on Team Switzerland, on the Druid, he has 2 copies of Wrath and a Mind Control text thrown in there. This is a nice anti-aggro variant of the deck, and 2 Doomsayers, actually, as I take a look at this list. This is not a Togwaggle Druid that I have seen before, but I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I also like what I'm seeing in Hong Kong side of things. They're getting a little bit heavy on the secrets.
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah, if you could choose the cards, maybe throw 1 or 2 of those away. But Mana Worm into Arcanologist into Secret does look like a reasonable start. If Kin can pick up a Kirin Tormage, things are looking great. Then again, second Spellstone, very strong.
Switzerland has like every good card in this matchup to have in your starting hand. The Wrath can deal very nicely with the Mana Worm. It won't even necessarily come down on turn 2 here, because Wild Growth is very, very powerful.
That's actually a tough decision.
So what could go wrong if you go Wild Growth? If they go coin Kirin Tor Apprentice into Secret, that's the worst thing that can happen,
No,
right?
the worst thing that can happen is Glyph into 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 Frostbolt Lethal.
To Glyphin?
Into Frostbolt Lethal. That wasn't actually like 27 glyphs, but whatever. I'm not gonna do that.
You just thought you'd call it at 11. That was the point at which the joke died. Not the magic 3 that all comedians across history have learned. The magic Falcone 11.
I mean, you're the one that counted that I did it 11 times.
It was a complete guess.
I have no idea how many times I did it either.
But in the real world, as we spent that entire time we could have been doing analysis, garbling about some random nonsense, no offense.
Dante.
For Switzerland, the worst thing that could happen there, again, in the real world, was coin Kirin Tormage into Secret, right? Into Counterspell, I guess, was the worst case scenario. At which point, they have 4 mana, so they could go for Spellstone to try and counteract this Counterspell. But even then, that might be a bit weird because they wouldn't want to play the Spellstones quite yet. It was a weird turn, but either way, they obviously did not have that possibility on Hong Kong side, so it has worked out so nicely here for Gusenaj. He can go for the Spellstone with this as well, even a Nourish picked up as well.
Yeah.
This is crazy good.
This is, as you said at the start of this game, it's practically every good card in the matchup for the early game. Wrath for one of these 2/3s, Jasper Spellstone for the other one, for the Anomaly, whatever. Kin just doesn't really have any play here. Yeah, he can drop a Secret. That's Explosive Runes. There's no minion in Gusenaj's hand.
Yeah, that is very interesting that he went for Explosive Runes over Counterspell.
So the potential logic there is make the opponent play around Counterspell by wasting a Secret, then drop the Counterspell, so they've potentially lost 2 spells as a result.
Because Counterspell is good going into turn 5, right? Because they want to play one big spell in Nourish. That's always the best play.
So Switzerland will assume that it is a Counterspell, not play the Nourish.
Yeah. Kind of cute. It's not really going to work out all too well for Hong Kong because we can see the Spellstone, which again will activate, and then Branching Paths just to gain 12 armor.
Yeah, I mean, the armor gain is pretty strong against Aggro Mage. Is there any reason that Gusenaj would just risk it and play the Nourish? I don't think so. Well,
because the potential upside is massive, but I think they've realized they are in such a good position here with Malfurion picked up as well.
Yeah.
They don't need to take the risk.
No, exactly. Not even going to bother gaining armor here.
Yeah.
They've got a Nourish in hand, still going to draw some cards.
I like drawing at least one card, very possibly the second as well, because of 2 reasons. Maybe it allows you to go for Nourish for ramp if you draw into an ultimate infestation.
Yep.
Also, you have so much armor already. The way you lose this matchup now is falling behind on board, right?
Yeah.
And your hand does not fight back that well against board quite yet.
Oh, now things are just almost so good for Kin, as Portugal take their first win against Romania in an elimination series. But yeah, anyways, Anomaly, Coin, Arcane Missiles would be great, but there's a Wrath in hand, as we can see. Mana Worm, Coin, and Anomaly to set things up could be okay. Then Switzerland can only deal with one of them.
What are you stopping them from playing if you go Mana Worm, Coin, Anomaly on turn 6? Like, you want to be disrupting your opponent's plays here, right, as much as possible.
So
and they don't go for Spreading Plague then?
What about Mana Worm Counterspell?
Your opponent has complete information over what that secret is then, right? So they can play around that probably pretty easily as well, because they'll just play Giggling Inventor or play Wrath or whatever.
Why would they know which secret that is?
If the counterspell was played, because there's only 2 in the deck.
Oh, of course.
And the first one hasn't been activated still.
Oh, of course, of course. it's still there, that's why, yep.
So now the Plague is available for Switzerland. It's not that good. So the other plays to look at are Nourish for Ramp brings you up to 3 mana crystals. You could then play the Arcane Tyrant, which would get destroyed, so you probably don't really want to do that. So maybe you just go Giggling Inventor, because it locks down the board relatively well.
Any play that's not clearing up the Anomaly looks bad to me.
Okay.
Maybe I have a skewed perception of just how good that card is, but Cinderstorms and Missiles just do some horrible things.
So then do you just go Wrath Hero Power? Or would you throw in the Nourish for Ramp as well?
Could Nourish for Ramp, but the fact that there's no more card draw is a little bit awkward.
And you are right. Cosmic Anomaly is a very, very high priority removal target. I'll agree with you.
You play Giggling Inventor, for example. You lose the Giggling Inventor itself. Cinderstorm usually clears the whole board, with Missiles as well. Like
it is such a difficult turn, though. As I imagine they're also going to be considering drawing cards in that instance. But with both Spellstones gone, you only really have Naturalize that can clear the board now. Yeah, I think this is probably a little bit better.
At the same time, it's a bit risky. As you said, there's not been an Ultimate Infestation drawn. They don't have a Nourish now in hand. They don't actually have any card draw whatsoever. And there is a very real chance that Switzerland just run out of stuff. If their next couple draws are like Togwaggle, Azalina, Naturalize, or Doomsayer, like they're not really doing anything.
I think the thing to realize, though, is that Malfurion is like a mana sink. You just pour mana into it and gain life out the other end, and you're very happy indeed. Even this turn, Malfurion into Hero Power to kill off the Mana Worm, I guess, to make sure you're not falling behind on board.
Surprised there was no secret played there. Again, I guess it's the perfect knowledge.
Well, they wanted to spell Counterspell, Ultimate Infestation at this point, don't they?
And they also want to play one secret at a time if possible, so that Switzerland never knows what to play around. But as you said, Malfurion and then the Hero Power to take down the Mana Worm does so much work here. It's sort of a question now as to, can Hong Kong draw a Luneth before Switzerland draw Ultimate Infestation? They got Nourish now though, so it's...
Yeah, they don't even really need it, right?
Yeah, good point.
And now that we can see Kin's plan coming together of saving the counterspell for turn 10, which again I imagine he will definitely do. There's no Moonfires in the deck, so there's no ability to go for an Ultimate Infestation on turn 10. I question if that was worth it, to be honest, because Switzerland have such a nice hand anyway. Hong Kong had no way of knowing that, I suppose. But I feel like maybe using it a little bit more immediately to try and lock down that board might have a little bit more consistently given them the damage through to face that was necessary. But with no minions being drawn here for Kin and none on the horizon, it would seem either, I very much doubt they're ever going to get the damage to close this one out.
It's getting out of control, as you said. This Malfurion is a mana sink, as Gusanaj sinks in mana and gains armor every single turn. Nourish is there. There is now a counterspell, so Nourish isn't actually playable this turn. Everything sort of has a downside if played from the hand now, actually. Spreading Plague would just be cancelled, leaving only 4 mana. Any of the minions would be destroyed, dealing damage to Switzerland's face.
I mean, you can just go Giggling and then armor up, right? Isn't bad.
Yes.
Giggling MCT armor up. Like,
you
just want to lock down board.
Yeah, there's no harm to going wide, is there, as Gusanaj? Nope. Nothing the mage can do to punish that.
I mean, you are, in quotation marks, more vulnerable to Cinderstorm because it's more likely to hit minions, but that's whatever. It never clears up the board.
Yeah, it's kind of fine, though. Cinderstorm would prefer to go face a lot of the time.
Yeah, I guess this accomplishes a similar thing, right? You're just dealing with a different secret, setting up for a Nourish on the following turn. I mean, I think if you go Giggling Inventor into MCT, you get 5 minions on the board after the after the explosive runes procs, and then you gain the armor. You don't really lose either way, to be honest. This is a pretty one game for Goosenage. Because the amount of good draws they have left is not actually that high, right? Like, they want to draw into Ultimate Infestation, but they played both Spellstones, they played a Ferocious Howl, they played a Branching Path. Like, a lot of the good cards have already been played.
A Doomsday is good. Well, Doomsday sort of soaks up the explosive runes, but that's about it.
I mean, like, UI is what closes out this game 100%, right?
Branching Path is good. UI,
yeah.
okay, cool, there we go.
Yeah.
They are cards that are good right now.
Even just Double Tyrant, Giggling Inventor, you don't even have room on... Oh no, you have exactly enough room on the board to go for that. I guess you want to fit in a hero power again, because maybe they go a Luneth next turn, and maybe all this damage goes face.
One gets destroyed by explosive runes anyway.
Tangled web.
Oh yeah, of course, sorry. I was getting confused between the runes and the counter spells and all that nonsense.
What's so nonsense about secrets, Derek?
I mean, it's a rune that explodes and kills like a gnome that makes robots that have crazy hats that say hello, hello, hello. It's absurd in every definition of the word.
That was a very good answer.
Thank you. Oh no, wait, sorry, it's not killing that. It's killing a pink gnome that takes control of people's minds. Which is either a Hearthstone card or the plot of the worst episode of Black Mirror.
We have many secrets.
Well,
so how much damage can you push on this turn with Branching Paths, right? Like, you're looking towards lethal now.
So the problem is having to play around a secret that just got played. Switzerland don't know which one it is. Wait, unless...
you do. I think it's pretty standard, just one counter spell, 2 runes, right?
You're right. Yep, there's only
yeah,
one.
I mean, that's the list that everyone's playing now.
So...
so 12, 15, 18, swipe is 22. I think it's 25 damage actually on this turn.
I've just counted the same.
Yeah. If you go for that, you never lose because you can hero power face next turn. There's no healing. It doesn't matter what Goosenage does at this point. It just does not matter. He's won this game.
So what are the incredibly fringe things that Switzerland are going to be thinking about here? Like, what about...
Glyph into what? It's like Glyph into Scroll of Wonder, play the Arcane Intellect, and then get 3 fireballs, 3 fireballs in the face. Like, that is it. That's all you have, because this game is over. It's lost.
Well, I think that would make the community show highlights if that happened.
Yes. As Goosenage does go for it, he realizes it doesn't matter what he does here. Hong Kong just didn't get that early damage through. Didn't get the early minion pressure through, right? Like, their hand was just spell, 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 which doesn't win this matchup once Malfurions come down, because they will always heal up more damage than you're dealing every turn. You just don't actually get enough damage, because the 3 heal every turn at absolute minimum closes out the game.
That's the series tied up with 2-2, going all the way into this Shadowwalk Shaman versus Control Priest. First, we are going to have a few seconds to have a break to give the players a bit of a breather, as this next game could go quite long. So we've got the result of this, the result, hopefully, of Portugal versus Romania, all to look forward to very soon. It's Shadowwalk Shaman versus Control Priest to decide the fate of Hong Kong versus Switzerland. One of these teams goes through, the other has to fight to the death next week. Not quite to the death, it's Hearthstone.
To the elimination.
To the elimination. It's a family-friendly game we got here. But Shadowwalk Shaman versus Control Priest, Derek. We had a brief discussion about this earlier. I said I'm leaning slightly towards the Shadowwalk Shaman being favoured, but maybe it's closer than I was giving it credit for. What do you think?
Yeah, I would also put my money on the side of Shadowwalk Shaman. I think you have the ability to develop a little bit more strongly in the mid-game section, where you're actually maybe not against Twilight Drakes, but basically the main win condition of the Control Priest is to go for Anduin, Alexstrasza, Mind Blast, close out the game, to which there is some pretty strong counterplay for the Shadowwalk Shaman. You have 2 healing rains, you've got a Hagatha as well, which with the armor armor and the extra healing. You've got life drinkers, and then once you do get to your ultimate win condition of Shudderwock, the priest just has to sit there and cry because there's nothing they can do.
Hey, that card there is pretty good against Twilight Drakes, actually. The Earth Shock.
Oh yeah, I thought you meant Glacial Shock.
Yeah,
That's all right.
That's why I clarified. I realized Glacial Shock's not bad, but Earth Shock is just... Ever since the dawn of Hearthstone...
Oh, mate, since the Trump Arena days, that's always been a very spicy interaction where I could say, when I was at a sterling rank 23, I could say to my rank 24 friends, did you know it silences it and then deals the 1 damage? You stupid noobs.
Back in the days of ancestral healing on injured Blade Masters and... Oh, good times.
Was that ever a day?
I think that was the day.
Oh. Must have missed that day.
I think that was played in the the Crusher Shaman.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, Portugal take their 2nd win against Romania. Romania 1 game away from being eliminated from the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, I remember last year they were very, very close to qualifying through, weren't they? They even thought they had and were celebrating before they had victory clutched away from them.
Yeah, because the United Kingdom couldn't get a single
Because we literally couldn't win a game. Yeah, I remember that as well. But I gloss over that fact and laugh at Romania instead of the pitiful England team last year.
United Kingdom doing a much better job this year.
But for both players here to get started in this game, pretty respectable hands actually. Good amount of draw on both sides. And make no mistake, draw is very important in this matchup. It's not the only thing that matters, because I think we could potentially see one side running away with board. But even then, there's so much strong counterplay and board clear. Like, both of these decks are equipped to deal with very strong board-based decks fairly effectively, right? Like, they can deal with zoos that throw down a whole bunch of minions. They can even deal with, you know, odd rogues, some of the more mid-range decks. So they can definitely deal with these few fairly pitiful minions that these control decks are throwing down.
I'm trying to work out what the priest has cut for Scaleworm, because that is just not common in Control Priest anymore. There's no Holy Fire in the list. I guess it could be that. There is double Twilight Acolyte. There's a single Cabal Shadow Priest, so I think it all evens out.
It's just a deck direct swap, right? Isn't it? You go for one
Scaleworm or Holy Fire.
Yeah, one Holy Fire for one Scaleworm. They do have one copy of Silence and one copy of Mass Dispel, so pretty heavy in on the Silence. Maybe trying to get a nice win against the Death Rattle Hunters of the world. But it's an interesting list, to be sure. Maybe not the best for this matchup, though, because Holy Fire is, I think, a little bit more what you're looking for to push that bit of extra damage after Anduin's been found.
Well, these clerics are doing a pretty good job of shutting down the board, though. Blitzchung cannot risk playing Hero Power last turn, because if he gets the Healing Totem, then Sanaj is using that totem against him. So
that's just a card factory at that point.
So Blitzchung can play the Ooze, I guess, as a 3/3. It can test the clerics nicely.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right? You just force them to have some kind of removal, which is exactly Scaleworm, right? Like, Duskbreaker clears off everything, right? Which is no good.
There's no weapon to hold on to this Ooze. There's no reason to keep it in the hand.
Sadly, Dragon Soul is yet to find its place in the meta, much to my chagrin.
Love the idea of that card.
It is very, very cool.
So as you were saying, coining out the Scaleworm looks great here.
Yeah, you are giving up the activation on the Duskbreaker quite obviously, but who cares? You're well ahead on the board.
It's not a dragon, actually.
Oh, sorry? Oh, no, yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry.
Only works one way.
You'd never had any activation for Duskbreaker then?
No. Healing Rain. Oh, man. You know, it's never going to happen, ever, in competitive Hearthstone, but I always look at this interaction here. I think the two clerics on one side of the board. Is there a way Blitzchung can play a minion, deal like 6 damage to it, and then Healing Rain?
I've seen this so many times happen on stream. It's never been deliberately to burn cards. It's been accidentally because you forget the interaction to draw like 4 cards for your opponent. Because it is very easy to forget, right? Like, you think of Healing Rain as just, you know, it heals my face, doesn't it?
The amount of millage. Milling.
The amount of millage in the village.
I was going for some sort of cross between mill and mileage. I don't know.
You did not find it.
No, I didn't. I'll keep looking. 0 mana Electra's not bad.
It's kind of worth considering here just to kill off the clerics, right? Like, if you don't do it now, you can't play your Acolytes of Pain because they still keep value trading. You do kind of want Electra Storm Surge for Lightning Rain later on. But this would have to be like the first just 3-mana 3/3 Electra I'd ever seen.
What's Lightning Rain, Derek?
Oh, Healing Rain, sorry.
You found the cross between Lightning Storm and Healing Rain.
Got it. Shadow Reaper Anduin, however, is the pickup that Switzerland needed to turn this game right up.
Yeah, not for a few more turns yet, but...
Just having it there.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to know that you have the certainty that eventually you'll get through to it. But now with no second Scale Worm, as obviously they only run one in the deck, they cannot clear off this second 3/3 that's been thrown down, and it's going to do some pretty good work.
These clerics haven't drawn a single card, have they?
They have not drawn a single card.
What is going on? Do they have to trade one in and heal the Electra? Oh.
Yeah, that doesn't feel good, does it? Well, what's the other options you go for? Just Acolyte of Pain on the board?
Shadow Visions doesn't really get anything good whatsoever. Powered Shield is about the best.
Oh yeah, Powered Shield is pretty good. Just 1 mana short of getting in a cheeky heal as well.
Oh, 4 mana 3/3 Dustbreaker.
Yeah, not often anymore that we see the tempo Dustbreaker, but then again, it's not often that we see Control Priest anymore, to be perfectly honest.
Not often that we see Dustbreaker at all, actually.
Yeah, despite being one of the most objectively, absurdly powerful cards in Hearthstone.
Yep.
The Dragon support is lacking, I think it's fair to say at the moment, only finding it in pretty fringe Priest decks, as, you know, despite we're seeing, I think, a couple of playoffs lineups that I've seen bringing Control Priest, it has not found its core spot in the meta.
We're slightly closer to the Healing Rain Dream here. Blitzchung can deal 1 damage to this Electra and then heal up, drawing Gusanage 2 cards. Obviously not ideal.
But, yeah, well, it would only will draw 1, right? Because you have to attack into one of the clerics first.
Oh yeah, that's even worse. All right,
So,
never gonna happen. Dream is dead.
I mean, the dream of drawing your opponent a card. Yeah, that is dead, I would say.
Your dream of drawing your opponent 24 cards, actually.
So could this just be a pass here for Hong Kong? Like, again, everything here has its downsides. If they Hex, they've wasted a Hex on a 3/3, which is rubbish. If they go Acolyte of Pain, it just gets traded off. If they Hero Power,
or a 1/3
then the
even,
Cleric
actually.
can come in. But there's a Hex on a 1-drop. What is this game?
Oh boy. This is such a slow game. Gusanage could trade in the Dustbreaker here, set up the Acolyte, maybe finally draw some cards from one of his card draw cards.
Yeah. This feels like the old school Raza Priest mirrors, doesn't it? Where your main thing you were doing in the early turns was denying your opponent's draw. That's what you did.
Yeah.
Whereas here for Hong Kong, you know, they're pretty handily here, denying their opponent's draws. 2 clerics were on board for 4 turns, and not one of them drew.
So I guess Shadow Visions into a Powered Shield, buff up the Dragon and trade could be okay. But the thing is, all that does is get bored, and not even that much bored.
Yeah.
Switzerland ideally wants to be getting Mind Blasts from Shadow Visions. Just
That's true.
might not
yeah.
be able to afford to.
If you're going for Visions into Powered Shield when you already have a Shadow Reaper Anduin in hand, that feels rough. So I think it's just going to be leading off with the Acolyte of Pain, hoping to just get some amount of draw with this, as measly as it may be.
There's the lightning. The lightning rain, Derek.
The Lightning Stormfowl. I slipped up once, all right. Sue me.
Well, lightning storm and healing range there. It was just a more efficient way of saying it.
All right. It's very economical of you.
It's quite an economical grumble as well, actually. Another one mana Electra. That's 2 more spells can be played at some point. Double Lightning Storm now with Electra's not looking bad, actually.
Hong Kong just saw the lines, like right before they drew Grumble on turn 3 when they played this Electra, they were like, we're going to bounce it back. We're going to go Electra into Lightning Storm, clear up a nice board.
I must consider.
I don't believe they played a single Saronite yet, which is an issue. Or Life Drinker, actually. But it's nowhere near.
The combo's miles away. But Gusanage now, the first non-natural card of the game. is going to be drawn. Hallelujah. In this matchup that's very, very heavily based around drawing to your kill combo.
But they just want as much screen time as possible.
Yeah, Gusenage getting a lot of screen time here, showing off his lovely scepter, his cool haircut.
I like healing up the Acolyte as well, though.
Yep.
Maybe he can draw another card from this Acolyte at some point.
You never know, but I think, yeah, Electro into Lightning Storm looks like a nice way to clear up this board. Even developing an Acolyte of Pain potentially as well, right? Half the time you draw your opponent 2 cards off of the Acolyte instead of 1, which does suck.
He is also overloading himself for 4 if he makes that play, as the Lightning Storm gets cast twice, the overload counts twice.
Maybe you start off with Hero Power, because then if you hit Spell Power, you just don't play Electro, right?
Yeah.
And then you go Lightning Storm, Acolyte of Pain. Oh no, you can't play this, you just go Lightning Storm, yeah.
Is that better overall, though? That's the question.
Yeah, it's not much better, is it? If you overload yourself for 4, you're still just playing Chain Gang next turn. That's fine, right? Because if you don't, this Acolyte of Pain is just a card machine. Like, it's just going to keep attacking and healing up. Attack, heal, attack, heal. And Gusenage will draw to his combo. They're going for it. They hit the spell power.
Okay, the dream. That's exactly what Hong Kong wanted. The trade happens here. 1 card drawn, only 2 mana crystals overloaded. And there's a Mind Blast for Switz.
Yeah.
So, 19 health. Blitzchung's getting low-ish.
It's so questionable as to whether that was better, though, right? Because you miss out on having a 2-7 on board, or whatever it was, like a 2-6 on board, which is good in a way because it can keep board control, but it's bad in a way because it might get stolen by a Cabal Shadow Priest on the following turn. You don't develop an Acolyte, but you're only overloaded for 2 instead of 4. But then how much use is a 2 extra mana this turn? Do you go double Acolyte of Pain? Like, it's a weird, weird turn there for Hong Kong.
As Romania take their first win against Portugal, still in the game, trying to survive in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Gusenage, I think, maybe wants to play the Acolyte of Pain just as a 2-4. Not how it works there, buddy. You would be making a 0-4 and giving your opposing minion +2 attack.
Oh boy, that's no idea. Oh, this is fun.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, it's not the same thing because the 4-4 is more vulnerable, but then I guess your big minion is less vulnerable to Hex, so it's arguably better even. And it's less vulnerable to Earthshock as well, so this is probably just better if you could choose to do it either way even.
It's another awkward turn for Hong Kong, though. I guess 1 Dustbreaker's already been played, so there's no real harm in just jamming Sour Knight Chain Gang here, but it's still not that mana efficient. And again, it's a matchup where you have to question every time you use that hero power, is this the right thing to do? Do I need these totems clogging up my board, filling up my hand? Yeah,
it's even weirder in this matchup, right? Because it's not just hand size issues with Grumble, which is mostly out of the way. It's Psychic Scream. You really, really don't want totems to be shuffled back into your deck because every single draw that's a turn away from drawing the second Chain Gang, the Life Drinker, Shudderwock itself is a big blow to your your game plan.
There's little time.
But in this situation, Hong Kong thinking, well, if you want to Psychic Scream this, be my guest. You've just played 2 big minions. You're really not going to have much pressure after this. So I think they are quite happy to throw down the taunts now to protect their health total whilst they are less vulnerable to Psychic Scream.
Most of the totem results were fine there as well. Healing Totem being the only bad one. 1-1 and Taunt usually okay if you're the Shadowwalk Shaman. Tends to be spell damage or healing that you don't want, and the spell damage is actually the one they did want earlier. So these totems have been fine. So, Primordial Drake, I guess, is the big obvious card that our eyes get drawn to. Maybe Anduin is tempting as well this turn, as Hong Kong could be dead sooner than you think.
Anduin is also very juicy. I wonder if they're leading up to the Master Spell on this turn, however.
Oh, that's nice.
They get... Oh, no, sorry. I was going to say if they get Mind Blast off Shadow Visions was that lethal, but even then they wouldn't have the mana with which to do so. But if they are afraid of this board being cleared off, Master Spell is the way to go, I suppose. You do really want to start playing that Anduin as quick as possible, as this is now
3 off. It's
3 off lethal.
But now they can't get Mind Blast from the Shadow Visions.
Nor can they get Holy Fire because it is not in the deck simply.
Is that a problem? Maybe that sequencing was just wrong.
Yep, I like the silence as well here for Switzerland. Could they have got anything that would have changed that play? If they've got Duskbreaker, they probably would have played that instead of the Shadow Vision.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Or Twilight Drake. Like, I think there were plays they would have made there that happened more often than Mind Blast happened.
Okay.
So I think this is still fine. Silence, again, is just a 0 mana reactivation. The Shadow Reaper Anduin hero power. Maybe it gets through a taunt as well, even though that's unlikely.
Now we have a difficult balancing act here, as Hong Kong have to decide when they need to play this healing rain. Especially after Anduin gets played. Switzerland's goal, I guess, is to put Hong Kong low enough where they're dead to the double Mind Blast, but not low enough where they feel the need to go Electro Healing Rain.
Yes, because once that happens, Switzerland, or at least from where Hong Kong is sat, Switzerland will just snap play Alex Straza right and bring them right back down to 50.
I mean, this is just Anduin. The double Mind
Yeah,
Blast
yeah.
is, what, 16 damage next turn?
Yep.
Which would be lethal at the moment. So Blitzchung has to heal himself.
And just look at his reaction there. He is thinking anything but that, right?
Life Drinker.
Yes.
Okay, no, the issue is Hong Kong don't know what came from that Shadow Vision. So as far as they know, there could be 3 Mind Blasts.
Which would be 19 damage, which would be exact lethal on the Life Drinker.
Right.
Assuming they even deal with the Twilight Drake. Like, they have no way of dealing with that at the
Yeah,
moment,
that's true.
right?
That's true. So, see what gets drawn. See what Hagatha summons. Maybe it has to be Life Drinker and then Healing Rain. Let's find out. Oh!
That's not bad.
Tank Burst does deal with the Twilight Drake.
2 damage off the board, straight up.
Which means the only way that this would be lethal would be, as you said, the 3 Mind Blasts. That is a breakpoint that Blitzchung may decide he needs to play around, though.
Oh, it's such an exact breakpoint, right? And they would have picked Mind Blast, but then by the same metric, what? They would have to have picked Mind Blast off of the Shadow Visions, already had 1 Mind Blast in hand, and then drawn the other Mind Blast. Like, that's so specific, because if they had both Mind Blasts in hand already, they couldn't have discovered the last one off of the Shadow Visions.
Didn't look like they were going to go for the Voltaic Burst there.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I think I actually like this play because if you actually think about the likelihood of having triple Mind Blast, it's so low.
Yeah, you're right.
It's so low.
There's the other Shadow Visions. It would, yeah, you're right. The Mind Blast would have had to be that Divine Spirit, right?
Yeah.
Or this card exactly.
But now for Gusanaj, while he doesn't have Alex Straza, the debating that will be happening in the next couple of turns is actually kind of on. The ball is in Hong Kong's court here, because if Switzerland just go for all-out damage here, they can bring their opponent down to, what, 3 health? If they wanted to go all in.
That can't be right, though.
Then they just go for... I don't think they will do that, because I agree that's not correct. But Electro Storm Surge Healing Rain, if they go 2 all in, is a big old swing there.
And that's why I said before, though, it's this balancing act. Gusanaj needs to set Blitzchung so that he's dead in next turn without ringing the alarm bells.
I mean... I think those bells be thoroughly ringed by this point.
I wonder if there's any merit to playing all of the Shadow Vision secret spells you got, just to show, hey, I don't have a Shadow Visions here.
Oh, would I kill you? Will me? I can't imagine Shadow Reaper Anduin saying, will me.
I can now. Thanks, Derek. No, I don't think that's ever going to work out, though. Switzerland are going to have to accept that Hong Kong are going to heal up now.
Yeah, they're trying to save the surprise factor, right, with Mind Blast.
Alex Straza drawn sometime soon would be huge.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. But for Blitzchung now, he's thinking either my opponent has Mind Blast in hand, or they've picked 2 Mind Blasts off of the Shadow Visions. Like, he will heal up on this turn.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He just will. Whether or not he plays Electro Storm Surge is somewhat interesting.
It's only 5 health. That's the issue. But he could go Electra, Healing Rain, Spirit Echo.
Yeah.
Which would mean that if the Alex Straza comes down, they can trade everything in, replay the Life Drinker.
I also believe that Electra Storm Surge Spirit Echoes does not return 2 minions.
It doesn't.
Because it's a return effect rather than a copy effect.
It doesn't return a copy, it returns the card itself.
Yeah.
And the same card can't be put in your hand twice.
Because that's the ridiculous thing in Hearthstone. That's where they draw the line. But here, Hong Kong just wondering if they can get away with a pure Healing Rain on its own. We can clearly see that would probably be a step too far.
Right.
As-
now,
Whoa.
the Alexstrasza, if drawn off the top, would be a disaster for Hong Kong.
Yeah, that would pretty much be game unless the Hot Spring Guardian had been gotten there off of their Earthen Might, which, I mean, we can clearly see Storm Chaser draws a Volcano.
Yeah, Storm
That's fine.
Chaser as the random elemental drawn there
It's not
is
bad.
one of the better ones. It's
Yeah.
just 4-mana, draw a card, fine.
Well,
Okay.
I guess Calamos was actually the best case scenario, right? Wasn't it?
Okay.
Then you heal for 12.
Okay, fair point, fair point.
As there we go, right back off the top. Man, Electra is just determined to be played as many times as possible in this game. And with the Storm Chaser
So-
into Electra as well, it's just like the Dr. Boom puzzles.
Hang on, Electra, does it going off 3 times on the Shadowwalk make any difference whatsoever? No, it says twice, doesn't
Yeah,
it? It doesn't
yeah.
say an extra
It's like
time.
Bran or Maiden in the Lake.
Okay, just checking that. Because if Shadowwalk then said the next spell you cast is played 4 times, that would be pretty stupid.
Brilliant. You can play your Earth Shock 4 times in a turn. Wow.
Oh, imagine that with Lightning Bolt, though, after a Shadowwalk.
Yeah. Hong Kong just need to see something pretty magical pretty soon if they're to be pulling this one back. Hex isn't bad to deal with the body of an Alexstrasza, but still, they need that healing, which pretty much has to be the only copy of Healing Rain left in the deck.
Or Shadowwalk at this point.
Or
That's
Shadowwalk.
probably
yeah,
not the
sorry,
worst
good
draw
point.
now.
Yeah. However, the Alexstrasza is not there for Kusanaj.
So Gustenage just needs to start dealing the damage any way he can. He's going to go Primordial Drake Ping. He could next turn he could go Cabal Shadow Ping, Cabal Shadow Priest Ping. Bit by bit, going to try and burn Hong Kong down. Hong Kong don't have any healing currently in the hand, but a lot of randomly generated spells that are going to become impossible for Switzerland to start to play around.
And here for Hong Kong, they are drawing a lot of cards. Like, they had a few shuffled back into the deck, which was somewhat detrimental to their chances of drawing through to Shadowwalk. But on this turn, even though they're at, 9 cards? They would go down to 7, draw 3. Okay, so they can't go Acolyte into Volcano lest they overdraw. But that's something they can look towards on one of the following turns, right? Is just drawing. They can draw through so much of their deck, find that Healing Rain, find that Shadowwalk, be in a really nice spot.
A path dimly lit.
Alright, sure. 0 mana Prince Callister.
Fashionably late, as a prince should be. Another Voltaic Burst, yeah, it doesn't really do much here, right?
It's not great, is it? It's just a slightly worse Lightning Bolt at the moment.
Wondering if he wants to overload on this turn. I guess if he draws Shadowwalk off the top, he would want to play it twice. But there is the Alexstrasza just in time for Gusenage, as there is still no healing available for Blitzchung. He shakes his head, says, well, you know what? Sometimes they've just got it.
Okay, a Life Drinker puts Hong Kong back up to 18 though, and Double Mind Blast is 16 damage.
They're not dead.
If Hong Kong can clear this Alexstrasza, which they can with Volcano.
Yeah, they could just go Life Drinker Volcano, right, in the worst case scenario.
Well, Volcano then Life Drinker, but yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, if Blitzchung is ever really wanting for cards in the future, for random generation, he could go Voltaic Burst, Spirit Echo, trade the 1/1s in, and then replay the 1/1s just to get more spells. I'm thinking at the point Blitzchung wants to get a Healing Rain desperately, that is a potential play.
That's so desperate. Though.
Oh yeah, it is desperate.
Yeah,
But
I guess.
it's an option.
Cryostasis on the Alexstrasza is unfortunately not an option due to Silence being in the deck, and I think you kind of have to play around that.
Yep. There's no real reason not to use Volcano here.
I mean, there is reason to, because maybe they go for Life Drinker and they hit Hex off of it.
Oh, sure.
Worth considering,
sure,
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just clearing cards out of hand, I guess, as well here. Still can play Shadowwalk on the following turn with now 2 Life Drinkers thrown into the pool. They are still alive, but still no healing off of that Hagatha.
They can't play Shadowwalk next turn. They're overloaded for 3.
Oh yeah, of course, right. So it's going to be 7 mana, so Electra Storm Surge into either Healing Rain off of the Hagatha or from the deck is still available. But whatever they're going to do, they have to do it next turn or they have lost.
They don't even have a Tidal Surge or anything. If they had Tidal Surge, last turn, Electra into Tidal Surge on the Alexstrasza would have been incredible.
That would have been nutty. They can still get it, right? Like, I think Tidal Surge and Healing Rain are the only healing cards.
Yeah.
In Shaman's pool of spells at the moment.
Believe so, yeah. It's expensive, though. Blitzchung's only going to have 7 mana total next turn, so they can't play a minion,
Shadowy
get the Tidal
thoughts.
Surge, and then play Electra.
Yeah. It would have to be Electra first, right?
Yeah, they put, or they like have to draw Healing Rain right now.
Yeah. Switzerland's turn, they deliberate for a while, but it does seem pretty obvious to me. I guess there was consideration for going for Psychic Scream there, actually, because if you go ping Psychic Scream, you still get them down to 16, and maybe that one less draw they have gets the Shudderwock out of the way. But then I guess you're shuffling a Life Drinker into the deck, aren't you, which does a similar thing in the immediate.
Hong Kong down to 12 health, 16 damage available with Double Mind Blast. Sandbinder doesn't do anything, so yeah, you think they have to play Electra and just hope for a healing spell?
Pretty much, because then they could get Electra into Healing Rain or Tidal Surge, like you said. And if they go Electra first, Tidal Surge would heal them out of range.
Yep.
Whereas if they go for Acolyte first or whatever, Tidal Surge does not do the job.
No, you're right. So I'm pretty certain. Oh, wait. No, okay. I was thinking Spirit Echo, trade in the Life Drinker, but it's just not good enough.
I mean, if you go Sandbinder to draw your Glacial Shard and you get Healing Rain, you still can't do both.
No, it has to be Electra. That's the only possible out.
Because if you get Healing Rain, you have to play it this turn anyway, so you may as well go for Electra, I think. Unless you're thinking you get Healing Rain off of this, and then draw Healing Rain off the top to go the Electra. But even then, if you don't hit Healing Rain on this turn, you lose anyway. So I think you just start off with Electra. Yeah. And
We'll see which conclusion Hong Kong come to. They go with the Sandbinder. It generates them Avalanche, so regardless of whether that was Electra or what, they have 12 health, and Switzerland have 16 damage.
I guess actually, when you think about it, we are somewhat letting Cast Division get to us, because although they pretty much know that Kusanage does have the Mind Blast, maybe they don't. Maybe there's some miracle by which they can't deliver lethal here.
They absolutely know that there's Double Mind Blast available on the hand, and you can tell from Blitzchung's facial expression, he knows that it is over. It is Switzerland that have managed to take this series, going 4-1 in the Hearthstone Global Games Swiss, earning their place in the top 16. Congratulations to Switzerland.
Yeah, they've been putting up a very strong display here in the global games. Not something that I would have expected, actually, as they are definitely one of the less well-known European teams, as I was somewhat surprised to find out their roster was just a team that I hadn't really heard of. But I have agreed with a lot of their play they've made. We've been pretty impressed with the deck list they've been putting and the play as well. So still a very strong contender going into the top 16.
I'm excited to see them in the top 16 for sure. Let's take a look one more time at the series that we just watched. And there you go. Shy and Loosefield were able to take a couple wins there, but all in all, Switzerland, they won the unfavorable Odd Rogue versus Taunt Warrior, and then were able to take those 2 last games down despite losing the Death Rattle Hunter Mirror.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw from them. Like, their opponent just had a somewhat better hand, I would argue, in the Death Rattle Hunter Mirror. They even threw away Rexar early on as well, and then they drew King Crush the turn before they went for the Katharina as well. It was just a little bit miserable there for Switzerland, but their last couple of games, Kusanage in particular, I think was putting on some really strong play here today.
It was great. Very soon we will have a chat with one of the players. I'm really interested in how Portugal versus Romania is going. I hope we can get a final update about that before we end the stream today. In the meantime, though, do we have an interview ready? Not yet. We're going to have an interview very soon. In the meantime, I just want to echo what you just said. Switzerland have been doing an amazing job. Again, don't want to harp on about this too much, but the Even Paladin deck last week was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they come up with. And it was Hypno's own creation as well. He said that was a complete homebrew deck.
And it's good to see that they have faith in each other, because Hypno's story about that was that he played the deck on ladder, had a good amount of success with it, went to his team and said, guys, this is legit. This is what we want to bring next week. And they obviously said, why would we bring Even Paladin when we could go Odd Paladin? Because that's just the meta, right? That is the standard Odd Paladin that we're playing. But even then, I think it's cool that they have faith in each other, are allowing each other to experiment when they think a deck is strong, and I think they'll be a good team, as I said, going forward.
Okay, well, it sounds like we now have an interview with the Rabbin. Let's see what he has to say. Congratulations, the Rabbin. Hello, how's it going?
Hey.
You have now qualified, as far as we know, to the top 16.
Yes.
How's that?
It's an amazing feeling, really. I think not a lot of people were expecting us to go this far and this quickly, since we got one more match to go and are already in. And yeah, it's a great feeling going through, and we bet some decent decent teams. So yeah.
So first thing I want to ask you is, I'm interested in how your lineup preparation goes week by week, because last year we talked a little bit about your even Paladin, which was awesome.
Last week.
Last week, yeah. Was there anything exciting this week going in for you guys? Any clever plans you had?
Them almost not changing their lineup was a good thing, because we scouted and went with the idea of countering the last week lineup. Actually, we checked each week what they played and how much they changed their lineup week to week. And actually, it wasn't that much. Like, I think the most was 2 different decks at one point compared to the previous week. So we went with like countering last week lineup. Maybe there's like one deck that changes, but overall we should be good. So we had the good strats. We lost the Q order thing because we had some very bad matchups, like the last one and the 2 first one, I think. But in the end, it paid off. So I guess the strat was good.
Yeah.
I think me and Falcone here are both wondering, we got to ask about your name. We like a man who has a decisive name. You are the only Rabin in the Hearthstone Global Games. Where did it come from? Why are you the Rabin?
I was 12 and I was participating in a informatic camp. So it was basically half they learn programmation and half they do outside things. And everyone had like a role in the thing. And one of the adults that was taking care of us was the Imperator, and so in his reign he had to have a spiritual leader. So I was the rabbin, and it's been an informatic camp. It stood as the nickname, and like 12 years later.
There you go. We're big fans of the name. We're big fans of the beard as well. But now, most important question, I guess. So now you've made it to the top 16. I think it's fair to say that you guys, Team Switzerland, are a little bit of an underdog in this tournament. You're one of the lesser-known teams. Is there anyone you're particularly looking forward to playing against in the top 16? Any team that you'd love to take down?
No, actually, like I would have loved to meet maybe France, but they're out now because like we know most of them, since 3 out of the 4 players in the Swiss team are French speaking, and 1 is the German speaking. So the 3 of us know them quite well. No, otherwise I don't know. Like any big name, I guess, means we're streamed. We're streamed anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
well, good luck moving forward, and congratulations one more time, the Rabin. You and your team go and celebrate your victory. You've earned it. What a way to go out. Awesome.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy as well. It's always nice to see some of those good personalities coming through as well, as Hearthstone is often an understated game.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we talked about a little bit earlier, and something that Dan Gaskin likes to talk about a lot too. As we go back to the first game of the series, quite a long time ago, but it was the Rabin himself playing very well, very slowly at the start with Odd Rogue, and just overpowering all of these taunts with his Hench Clan Thug.
Yeah, it was just a very nicely played game, right? As soon as Blitzchung threw away the quest, Rabin knew we're taking this nice and slow in the early game, just going for value trading, daggering as much as possible, and then pushing through with damage on the next few turns, and it worked out very well indeed.
Then was the Odd Rogue, where the Mana Worms almost
very close.
Did the job nice and early, but as you saw that very quickly, the Rogue did take it in the end. Then the Mirror, which, as you said, Switzerland just didn't draw very well here.
Yeah, there's the King Crush. That pretty much closed it out. As Loosefield, we might get to see at the end there, almost ended up losing that one with the King Crush missing the attack to face right at the end. A communications breakdown, as we've seen a couple times here actually at the Global Games, with missed attacks being made. But as you can clearly see, didn't matter. Loosefield got them up to 2-1 in a great spot to take it. But still, Goosenage, with a favourable matchup and an unfavourable matchup, was able to take it in the end.
Yeah, Goosenage managed to get both of these wins in, and there you go. This sort of speaks for itself, the power of the Tog Druid versus Mage. It's just, Druid in general, it gains so much armor, it has so many taunts, there's so much removal. Druid has everything.
Yeah, their class identity now, as I think has been joked on Twitter, is just winning.
That's a good class identity to have, and finally Blitzchung just could not get out of range of this double Mind Blast lethal. When the Alexstrasza was finally drawn from Gusenage, it spelled the end of the series.
Yeah, 5 cards, as we saw there, shuffled into the deck as well for Blitzchung, which put such a difficult spin on their game. They just couldn't draw through to the Shudderwock Shaman, or through to the Shudderwock, sorry, at the end to heal back up out of range. And with Anduin on curve, Alexstrasza not far behind. Nicely played game by Gusenage, and they just got what they needed.
And that is us finished for today. We will update you on Romania versus Portugal tomorrow. But for now, let's take a look at what's coming up tomorrow as we have more elimination matches throughout the day. Starting out with South Korea versus the United Kingdom, Raven versus Dan Gaskin as it's their picks. That's a good one to start the day with. And Bulgaria versus Spain, Norway versus the Russian Federation, your team, Germany versus the current champions, the Czech Republic, and finally Denmark versus the United States. I guess it's needless for me to ask you what your game of the day is.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I am somewhat quaking in my proverbial boots as the boys of Deutsche Soccer Guild go up against the reigning champions. I have my faith, but I also have my reservations.
Czech Republic have proven themselves time and time again to be an incredible team. Germany also pretty incredible themselves. I believe we have one off-stream game coming up tomorrow, and if memory serves, that is Poland versus Chile. There's 2 games tomorrow. So close.
You were so close. You get half a point there.
Thailand versus Vietnam also coming up tomorrow, and Chile versus Poland. I'm sure they were only one originally. That must have been added in later.
Yeah, they just put it in to trick you. They invented 2 new countries.
But the production team just confirmed in my ear that that game was not supposed to happen tomorrow, but now is. So I was right, sort of. I was right.
In another more real way, you weren't.
On that note, I think it's a good time to end the broadcast. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope you enjoyed. But from Gaskin, from Lorinda, from Derek, from the production team, and from myself, we hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. CEST.